All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're jumping right into a foundational work of Islamic commentary to really get to grips with its core ideas about creation, rejection, and, ultimate justice.
Okay, before we get into the thick of it, let's make sure we're on the same page about what a tafsir actually is. You can think of it as a really deep scholarly commentary. It's not just a translation, it's more like a detailed guide that peels back the layers of meaning in the original text, giving us all the context and wisdom behind the verses.
So, the specific source we're digging into today is a really big deal. It's the Tafsir of Ibn Kathir, a super respected classical commentary all the way from the 14th century. We're going to use it to break down the key themes in one of the Quran's chapters, Surah Al-An'am. This tafsir is famous for being incredibly clear and for how it connects to even earlier traditions.
So, here's how we're going to tackle this. We've basically pulled out 5 key ideas that really stand out in the commentary. We'll start with the very foundation of creation, then we'll jump into the central conflict, the message and its rejection. After that, we'll look at the consequences, the human side of things for the messenger, and we'll wrap it all up with the ultimate choice it presents.
All right, let's dive into our first major theme. The commentary kicks things off by laying down the fundamental premise, the absolute singular power of the Creator.
So, the commentary opens with this really powerful verse. It praises God not just for creating something as huge as the heavens and the earth, but also for something we experience every single day, darkness and light. And the commentary points out this isn't just some poetic flourish. It's for our direct benefit. It governs the entire rhythm of our lives.
And this is where it gets super interesting, right? The commentary points out this tiny but really significant detail in the original Arabic. The word for darkness is plural, which represents all the different misguided paths a person can take. But light, symbolizing the one true straight path, that's mentioned in the singular. Pretty cool detail.
Then the commentary zooms in from the cosmic scale right down to us, to the personal. It says our existence is defined by 2 appointed times. The first is our time here on Earth, which we all know has an end. But the second is the time for the hereafter, and that's a moment whose timing is known only to God.
So this foundation of creation immediately leads us to the central conflict of the whole thing. A divine message arrives, and it runs smack into our stubborn human tendency to just reject it. The commentary really gets into the psychology of denial here. The point it makes is, for some people, there's literally no amount of proof that would be enough. You could show them clear signs, incredible miracles, solid proof, and they would still find a way to turn away from the message.
And this verse, it just hits the nail on the head, illustrating how deep that denial can go. The commentary argues that the rejection isn't really about a lack of evidence. It's about a closed heart. Even if a message came down from the heavens, written on paper they could physically touch, those who are determined to disbelieve would just write it off as obvious magic.
Okay, this is a fascinating story that the source includes. It's about 3 of the Prophet Muhammad's most vocal public opponents. Now, these guys were hostile by day, but they were so drawn to the Quran's recitation that for 3 nights in a row, each one of them snuck out to listen in secret, and each one thought they were totally alone. It's such a powerful glimpse into that conflict between your public image and a private pull towards something you know is true.
So you have this conflict playing out in life, but what happens in the end? Well, that's where the commentary shifts gears and paints this incredibly vivid picture of the Day of Judgment, a day when denial is just not an option anymore. So the scene opens with this incredibly direct, almost piercing question. Everyone who associated partners with God is brought together and they're just asked point blank, where are they? Where are those partners you used to believe in? And when they're faced with this, this undeniable reality, what's their move? What's their only defense? According to the commentary, their last-ditch argument is just to lie. They actually swear an oath to God, denying the very beliefs that define their whole lives. But here's the thing, and it's a huge point in the commentary. That last-ditch lie, it's completely useless. In that moment of absolute truth, their falsehoods just, poof, evaporate. All the idols, the ideas, everything they invented to justify their actions, it all vanishes, leaving them completely exposed.
All right, so we've been talking about this big cosmic drama of creation and judgment, but then the commentary does something really interesting. It zooms right in on the human element, offering comfort to the messenger who's facing all this rejection.
And you get this moment of incredible compassion, really. The text directly acknowledges the real human pain that comes from being constantly denied and attacked. It's like a divine reassurance, a voice saying, "We know this hurts. We see what you're going through."
And this right here, this is the core of the constellation. The commentary completely reframes the whole situation. It's saying the rejection isn't personal. It's not an attack on the messenger's character. Their fight is actually with the message itself, with the verses of God. They're struggling against the truth, not the person delivering it.
And to back this up, it draws on history. It basically says, look, you're not the first to go through this, not by a long shot. Messenger after messenger faced the same kind of denial, the same hardship, but they stuck with it. They were patient, showing that this is a long, difficult path of perseverance, of just holding on until God's help arrives.
And all of this builds up to the final, big takeaway. The commentary's closing thought on what this all means, on the nature of our existence, and what's actually valuable.
So we're left with this incredibly stark choice, a fundamental fork in the road. On one side, you have this worldly life, which the commentary describes as basically just play and amusement, something temporary, fleeting. But on the other side, you have the hereafter, which is presented as the real deal, the far better, more enduring home for those who live with purpose and awareness of God.
And so, here we are, a 14th century commentary on a 7th century text, and it all boils down to this one final, provocative question. It's not a command, it's an invitation to just stop and think. After laying out all the evidence for creation, the reality of rejection, and the promise of accountability, the text simply asks, will you not then understand? It's a challenge, really. A challenge to weigh the temporary against the eternal and decide for yourself what's the truly logical path.